Hello to all our community members. Welcome to the Bajirao IS Academy. Today is 14th November and we are going to discuss the daily Hindu newspaper analysis. So today we have three articles in discussion. One by one we are going to discuss all of that. The first article is related to just electoral system. We have democratic based elections in India, but the election system has certain flaws. If we take an example, let us say that a candidate who wants to become the Prime Minister of India and the candidate belongs to North Indian state. So the chances of that candidate to become a Prime Minister is higher as compared to the candidate who is campaigning from South India. Why? Because South India has less seats or less representation because of less population. Okay, so there are certain lacunas in our electoral system and we need to reform it. And how we can reform it? Via delimitation. Okay, so even in the past we have did delimitation by establishing delimitation commission, but there are certain issues which was not handled. Okay, so what we can do, and there is a suggestion that for the elections to the Rajya Sabha there should be a direct elections. So we will be understanding all of the context here, and it is a very good article because it covers many more dimensions. Okay, and the second article is related to the Israel Hamas issue, and here there is another perspective. What is the perspective? Like currently in Israel versus Hamas, what Israel did, retaliation. Okay, but similar terrorist attack was occurred in India. You know the incident 26/11. Okay, the Taj Hotel violence. Okay, so in this terrorist attack, we didn't retaliated. Okay, we adopted the defensive policy and we called for international community for joint action against terrorism, and also we isolated Pakistan. Okay, and because of that you can see that the United Nation or other developed countries like USA, the Britain, all of them started to isolate Pakistan in terms of the aid that was given to them. Okay, and along with various other issue we are going to discuss in this article. And the third article is related to the recent Forest Amendment Act 2023. So this amendment, which aims to protect the conservation and deforestation, but indirectly it promotes the deforestation and also it disturbs the tribal rights. So how it is disturbing the tribal right? One important provision in this act that I am going to say you, it is like the broader definition of the forest, which was came from the Godvarman case 1996 from the Supreme Court, that any forest that comes under the dictionary meaning will be called as forest, will be categorized as forest. But in this act the provision is getting diluted. Okay, so one by one we all are going to understand that, and you will be enjoying the lecture series. If you hadn't subscribed our channel, please do subscribe, like, share and support. Okay, and spread to your friend circle so that they can also be benefited. And let's start with our editorial. But before that we have a prelims analysis, and here on the daily basis we try to give you the PYQ question so that you can practice here, and from practice you can gain confidence, and from confidence you can attempt the question in a right way. And also there are certain other benefits, like you can recall the questions, you can recall the concept easily. Okay, so try to solve that, pause the video and tell me the answer in the chat box. Okay, this will also makes the discussion participatory. You will be enjoying, I will be happy to share my thoughts with yourself. Okay, so the question is, the right to privacy is protected under which article of the Constitution? Option A, Article 15, option B, Article 19, option C, Article 21, and option D, Article 29. And remember, the right to privacy, which was declared as a fundamental right by the Supreme Court. Here, you have to also tell me on which case, on which judgment the Supreme Court declared right to privacy as a fundamental right. Okay, and we will be providing you the answer of this question in the last session of the discussion. Okay, and when we talk about privacy, you know that in the digital arena where privacy concerns are rising, the protection of the privacy, specifically the personal information, it needed to be ensured. Okay, and that's why the judgment is a remarkable judgment for India and for the Indian citizens. Okay, otherwise the data, the personal data can be transported easily to the different nation and can be exploited. And you remember the incident of the deep fake, okay, to an actress, and that highlighted the potential damage that artificial intelligence can do. Okay, so that's why the privacy, the digital data protection is also very, very important. And in the coming times, these all are going to rise. Okay, so that's why privacy is a very important concern in the present time when digital revolution is happening. Okay, so after discussion, let's start with our editorial. The first article is related to GS paper 2, and when we talk about the core issue of this article, the core issue talks about like we have the electoral system, but there is a issue in that. What is the issue? Limited representation. And when we talk about limited representation, it simply means that a area, let's say when we talk about the population of Uttar Pradesh, okay, so the population of Uttar Pradesh surpasses many of the country. Okay, and when we talk about the representation, 30 lakh population per MP. Okay, that means there is huge burden of population per constituency or per MP. Okay, that's one point. And when we talk about on average, an Indian MP is said to represent 2.5 million citizens, whereas in USA, an MP has the representation of about 7 lakh citizens. So how the bigger difference you can observe. And when we talk about Pakistan, it has 6 lakh citizens per MP as a representation. So that means we have very much limited representation. Okay, and it is not only for the national or the state legislative assembly seats, but also in the grassroots level. When we talk about the panchayati representation or the municipality representation, there is also clear deficit in terms of their educate representation. Okay, and when we talk about our political system, so there is one important issue you can understand, that in Rajya Sabha, the state legislative assembly sends certain person as the representative of Rajya Sabha, and Rajya Sabha represents whom? Rajya Sabha represents the states. Okay, the interest of the states. But here, what you can observe, that depending on the size of the state and the population, the seats of the Rajya Sabha is decided. That means UP has highest number of Rajya Sabha seats. And when we talk about southern state, that means the Rajya Sabha seats will be lesser because it has lesser population. Okay, so that highlights the inequality, and that's why the representation of the southern state to the Rajya Sabha is less as compared to the representation of the state from the northern India. Okay, so that leads to the disbalance in the equitable distribution of power sharing. Okay, so that's important point to be highlighted. So here Rajya Sabha is a little bit skewed towards the citizens of selected state. Okay, so when we talk about the potential solution, what can be the potential solution? Increase the number of seats. How we can increase the number of seats? Via delimitation. And what do you mean by delimitation? In simple term, delimitation means when you delimit the constituency. And delimiting the constituency, it means that per population you represent the seat according to the required population. Okay, and it can be a potential solution to restore proportionality, and it enables redistricting. Okay, but the past incident of delimitation showcase that despite we have done delimitation, but the core issue that the southern states are less representative in the state legislature or the Rajya Sabha, it was not handled. And in fact, in 1976, the delimitation was frozen up to 2026. Okay, so that's the important thing. And why it was frozen? Because it was a important thing that was highlighted, that for delimitation there was a need to have control over the population. Okay, but when we say about the comparison of the population growth, the southern state was able to control the population, but the northern state was not able to do so. That's why if the delimitation was carried on that time, that means the northern state will get benefited as compared to the southern state in terms of seats, in terms of Rajya Sabha representation, and this can increase the power inequality between southern state and the northern state. So that's the important point. And that's why in Feb 2002, the 84th Amendment Act of the Constitution was introduced, which froze the number of Lok Sabha seats until the first census after 2026. So first census after 2026 means what? The 2031. Okay, but remember that 2021 census is pending, and it will be conducted in 2024 after the election, and the report will be coming to 2026. So that means the 2021 census, that the report will come in 2026. So after that, the delimitation will be carried on. Okay, and when we talk about certain issues with the delimitation, so we have said already that when we talk about UP versus the MP from Lakshadweep, so a person from UP, a MP from UP represents about 3 million, that means 30 lakh voters. When we talk about MP representation from Lakshadweep, it represents only 55,000 voters. So here the over representation is a problem in bigger state, because in bigger state the larger population is getting represented per MP, and this increase the burden on an MP, and that's why proper development and proper reforms are not carried out. So that is one of the important issue with the delimitation. And also it would endanger a bias towards a Hindi speaking northern population. Okay, and southern state like Kerala and Tamil Nadu may be punished. Why they will be punished? Because these are southern state and they have controlled the population. Okay, and if the delimitation even established, okay, they may only increase the seat by 6%. And when we talk about the increase in seat in northern Indian state, so the percentage rise will be 63%. So you can compare the percentage rise of seats in the southern state will be 6%, and in the northern state will be 63%. So who will be benefiting? The northern state. Okay, and that means the selected national party from selected state will come to the power, okay, at the national level, and they will dominate the national politics. Okay, so that's important point which was also highlighted. And how to minimize this impact? So there are certain reforms which has been suggested, like the number of seats in parliament needs to increase significantly. At least the suggestion is 848 seats, so that no seat cutting should happen for the southern state, and also the southern state should get higher representation. And when we talk about another reforms, so the article suggests that delimitation should not be driven only by factors based on population, because if you consider population only, That means the northern state will be benefited rather than southern state. Okay, so it should include factors like geographical determinism, economic productivity, linguistic history. So this will be added. And also the example you can understand, like when we talk about Sikkim has only one Rajya Sabha seat. Okay, and when we talk about the Uttar Pradesh, it has the largest Rajya Sabha seat. So there should be a balance that Sikkim's voice must also be heard in the parliament despite it represents less population. Okay, but the population's voice should be represented whether it is less population or more population. Okay, that means the solution can be done that there should be increase in the seats. Okay, so when we talk about another context in this article, so in this article there is a suggestion that we need to promote federalism as well. But here you need to understand about federalism. What do you mean by federalism? So federalism in simple terms represents the distribution of power between the center and the state, and the power distribution is from the constitution. And some of the important provisions in the constitution is like the subject devolution, the subject distribution under schedule 7. Okay, that tries to distribute the subject between center and the state. Okay, along with we have Rajya Sabha. Okay, along with we have independent judiciary. Okay, so these are the factors and the provisions that promote federalism in India. Okay, and there is a need to enhance federalism in letter and spirit. That means more and more reforms should be done to promote federalism in India, and federalism accommodates diversity and regional autonomy. Okay, and for that, reforms in Rajya Sabha is needed. And what reforms is needed? Like giving each state the same number of Rajya Sabha MP. It is like in similar example that we see in the USA. In USA, in the upper house, every state has two representation from each state. Okay, so the article is talking about that. And in the current situation, in the current scenario, what is the representation? It varies from a state to a state. But what is the suggestion? Give each state the same number of Rajya Sabha MP. Okay, and also there is another suggestion: direct election for Rajya Sabha MP should be promoted. And here you have to tell me what will be the negative impact, what will be its cons if direct elections for Rajya Sabha is conducted. Tell me. Presently, indirect election is done, and how they are elected? They are elected from the state legislative assembly. Okay, they are selected and they are sent to the Rajya Sabha. So that's the point. And when we talk about reforms for the Lok Sabha and state legislative assembly, so here there is a suggestion like proportional representation can be considered. Now understand the election mechanism that follows in India. It is like when a candidate run for the election campaign, okay, for a constituency, and how they can win. They can win if the candidate gets even one extra vote from its competing candidate. Okay, so this is the system, and in this system is known as first past the post system. Okay, but in proportional representation, every candidate which is participating in the constituency gets due representation. Okay, and the least one gets rejected. So here proportional representation can be considered as one of the solution. And what is the basic demerit of first past the post system? Like despite a candidate does not get the majority of the votes, that means more than 50% of the votes of a constituency, despite that the person can become the head of that constituency, because if one extra vote is getting, the person will be elected. Okay, and there is another suggestion like having more states. Okay, because currently we have several states that represent the population more than a country. Okay, you can understand that around 22 Indian state or UT have a population higher than the population of a California. And remember, when we talk about California, it is not a country, it is a state in the US. Okay, so that's the important point. And if more state, that means better efficiency, better governance, and better administration. So that's the point. And that will also reduce the domination of larger states into the political system. And for that, new state reorganization commission may be set up. Okay, and there is also the demand for the new state, and that should be accepted. Like there is a demand for Bundelkhand state, Gorkha land, Jammu, okay, Karunadu, and Mithila for Bihar. Okay, Saurashtra by separating the uh, another state. Okay, so these are the demands that are going on. So via the state reorganization act, these demands can be fulfilled. And also, when we talk about for the urban settlements, so we have about 8,000 plus urban settlements. When we talk about the mayors basically head the municipality. Okay, so their representation is very low, in lower numbers. Okay, so that means a suggestion: every census town may have fixed 10 new mayor elected in a direct election. And if we enhance our local democratic representation, it will help to strengthen India's democracy. Because when we talk about India's democracy, it will be enhanced if more and more representation is done, whether it is national level, whether it is local level, whether it is the state level. Okay, so we have concluded this article. Now we are shifting to the next article, and the next article is related to GS paper 2. So what is the context here? We are seeing the Hamas Israel war going on, and about 35 days approx have been ended, but no solution. Okay, and only humanitarian crisis is increasing. But in this article, we have a comparison between India's terror attacks, okay, and India faced it, and how India's approach was good, okay, and that helped India to rise in terms of economic development and voicing their concern against terrorism at the global level with support of various developed countries like US and also organizations like United Nations. Okay, so we will be understanding. So because of the Israel Hamas conflict, many people in India sympathizing with Israel because Hamas did an unprecedented attack. Okay, and also there was a viral news which was going on that India should also adopt this type of retaliatory approach against their neighbors if they try to do any harm to India. Okay, but a article which was published in New York, and here the New York Times columnist Thomas Friedman published an article like they praised the former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's remarkable act of restraint with respect to the 26/11 Mumbai attack. Okay, so here in this article there is a talk that the remarkable act of restraint performed by that government was a good strategy. Okay, so in this article we will be understanding why it was a good a strategy. Suppose, let's say, after 26/11 attack, India decided to wage war against Pakistan. Okay, so that means the war may had get accelerated. Okay, and it may lead to the economic impact, and also what we known as responsible nation in terms of our nuclear policy and policy of peace and non-violence, so that impression may get had ended. Okay, so that's important point. And remember that when Hamas attacked Israel, what was the purpose behind the attack? It was like the peace deal which was going on between Saudis and Israelis. Okay, it aimed to broke that peace deal, because in that peace deal the Palestinian issue was sidelined. Okay, and the diplomatic relations was going to be established between the two nation. Okay, so that's the point. And let's say if India did had attacked at that time for retaliation. Okay, so maybe the nuclear standoff can can be initiated. Okay, and also the issue of terrorism may got shifted to the India Pakistan border issue. So that was a thing, and that prevented the crisis to rise further. And also after the 26/11 attack, the then president of US George W. Bush, okay, said a strong statement to support to India, and India was also praised for being a responsible nuclear power because India didn't utilize their nuclear power for retaliation. Okay, and that's why India was able to do civil nuclear agreement between US and India because of this credibility India has got. And after that, Pakistan was exposed, and not only India but many other nations isolated Pakistan. Okay, and the developed nation also isolated Pakistan at global level, and the impact was huge. You can see, you can compare that where India has risen and where Pakistan has been left. Okay, today Pakistan is facing economic crisis, no FDI, no investment, and also they are facing the internal security challenge. Okay, the terrorism which they promoted are eating their state itself. Okay, so that's the point. And even what the United Nations also came into the action by designating the Lashkar-e-Taiba as terrorist organization. Okay, so India's voice against terrorism was also respected, and we on the various platform try to raise the voice against terrorism, and that's because of the credibility of India that India got because of the responsible manner. Okay, and that's the point. But here one important thing, that our defensive approach was broken down, specifically when the Pathankot a terrorist attack was occurred in 2019. Okay, and that's why we on the retaliatory basis adopted the retaliatory approach by via air striking on Walakot. Okay, and the act was to send a signal to Pakistan that the terrorism war not cost free, it will cost the Pakistan. Okay, and this was a good decision, and it freed Indians from a defensive mindset. Okay, so what the article tried to say, that India's policy of earlier times of a defensive was good in that time, and when we talk about the present time, we are adopting in some of the scenario as the retaliatory approach that highlights the growing defense capability of India and also growing closer relation with the US. Okay, so that's the point, and that's the end of the article. Hope you understood. Now we are shifting to the third article. Okay, so the third article deals with the recent amendment done to the Forest Conservation Act. Okay, and this amendment, which aims to conserve the forest, prevent deforestation, prevent climate change, but indirectly aims to exploit the forest. Okay, and how we all are going to understand that. And another point is that it is damaging the livelihood of indigenous tribal population, because these tribal population are dependent on the forest resource for the product, for the livelihood. But because the permission from the gram sabha, okay, will not be required, will not be mandatory for establishing projects in their area, that means the company can come here, can build projects, and can exploit the forest resource, and that could lead to the displacement. Okay, and that's why the article says that whatever the recent amendment has been done, is it not good in the interest of the tribal communities, the forest dwellers, and in fact for protection of the forest as well. Okay, so that's the point, and I have provided you the context. Okay, and when we talk about how it is diluting the forest conservation and the rights of the tribal population or the indigenous population, you can remember that what the definition of forest which was earlier considered. Okay, that definition has been shrinked. First of all, you need to understand that in 1996 Supreme Court in Godvarman case, they said that whatever forest that comes under the dictionary meaning will be considered as forest. Okay, that means many of the private land was also came to the definition of forest, and that's why it prevented the exploitation. But now the amendment says that the forest definition will be applied to area under 1927 Forest Act, and also those designated on or after October 25, 1980. Okay, but here remember, it does not apply to forest converted for non-forest use on or after December 12, 1996. Okay, that means here the definition of forest will be excluded. And one more thing which is added here, like if we are making any infrastructure projects in the border area of Pakistan and China within 100 kilometer of range, so any of the infrastructure project or the security related project will not be restricted in the name of forest, because it excludes the definition of forest in this 100-kilometer range. Okay, that means the projects will be getting green signal, and there will be the deforestation, okay, the exploitation, so all of that. And also the act is promoting ecotourism, safari, environmental entertainment initiatives to improve the livelihood, but it is actually challenging the livelihood. Okay, so there will be the impact on forest, like in deforestation will increase, because it will be easier to convert forest land for non-forest purpose. And it is like getting against the Godvarman judgment which was given in 1996, that talked about the dictionary meaning of the forest. Okay, but here what you need to understand, that indigenous community has the greater impact, because any commercial project which will be brought in the forest, earlier it required the consent of indigenous community, that is the Gram Sabha, but now the consent is not required, it will be excluded. That means any commercial project can be established, and that can lead to the displacement of the indigenous community. Okay, and the state government and the bureaucracy, basically they observed, like if we give them the community rights, okay, under the Forest Right Act, so it weakens the state authority and decision making power. So that's why this type of change is not good in the interest of the indigenous community. Okay, and also it contradicts the decentralized forest governance. And hence when we talk about conclusion, so it is like a step backward in forest conservation. Okay, and it will do harm to the forest and even the inhabitants, the indigenous population. And the government need to reconsider the amendment, and should expand the definition of forest as was earlier. Okay, so that's the important suggestion, and hope you enjoyed this article. And now we are shifting to the prelims answer session. So basically the right answer is article 21, because right to privacy was declared as a fundamental right under article 21. And when we talk about article 21, it deals with right to life and personal liberty. Okay, and the judgment was named as Puttaswamy judgment. Okay, so remember the Puttaswamy judgment that gave the right to privacy as fundamental right under article 21. Tell me, the right to education was inserted into the fundamental right via which amendment act? Tell me in the comment section. We are waiting for your answer. So friends, let's finish the article discussion. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you really, please do like, share, subscribe, and the PDF of the discussion will be shared to the Telegram channel. So do join the Telegram. So do join the Telegram channel. Thank you very much.